House Speaker Nancy Pelosi speaking right now at the White House following a meeting between President Trump and congressional leaders. Let's listen in.
Taken in Syria. It calls upon the president to urge the Turks to exercise restraint, for us to have humanitarian assistance to some of the Kurds. Children are being killed there. And very, very importantly, and most importantly, it asks for a clear plan on how we're going to fight ISIS. I think that vote, the size of the vote, more than 2-1 of the Republicans voted to oppose what the president did, probably got to the president because he was shaken up by it. And that's why we couldn't continue in the meeting, because he was just not relating to the reality of it. Again, we are proud of our men and women in uniform. Those who have been in Syria have conducted themselves in a way that makes us all very proud. And I conveyed that to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. We had some questions about ISIS, and I'm going to defer to distinguished leader from New York, well, from the Senate from New York, who focused on ISIS in the meeting. Mr. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Leader Hoyer. I told the president that being from New York, as he was, we're particularly aware of the problems, the terrorism that an organization like ISIS can create. And the fact that someone no less than General Mattis has said that ISIS has been enhanced, that the danger of ISIS is so much greater, worries all of us. I asked the president what his plan was to contain ISIS. He didn't really have one. He said the Turks and the Syrians will guard the ISIS prisoners. I said, is there any intelligence evidence that the Turks and the Syrians will have the same interest that the Kurds or we did in guarding ISIS? And the Secretary of Defense was thank God he was honest. He said, we don't have that evidence. And so I said, then how can we think that this is a plan when there are Syrians and Turks who are not our friends, who ISIS, if they escape, does them very little harm? How can we let this happen? They didn't have any good answer. This is appalling. The president had no plan, no real plan for containing ISIS other than relying on the Syrians and the Turks. Then why did we spend a decade, billions of dollars, and lost lives in trying to curtail ISIS if on a phone call, on a whim, the president is going to undo all of that and turn this over to the Turks and the Syrians? I would also say one other thing. He was insulting, particularly to the speaker. She kept her cool completely, but he called her a third-rate politician. He said that there are communists involved and you guys might like that. I mean, this was not a dialogue. It was sort of a diatribe, a nasty diatribe, not focused on the facts, particularly the fact of how to curtail ISIS, a terrorist organization that aims to hurt the United States in our homeland. Steny.
Just briefly, you're going to hear the president say we walked out. We were offended deeply by his treatment of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. The president, in my view, has created a crisis in the Middle East, a crisis that undermines the world's confidence in America. This crisis required a rational, reasonable discussion between those of us who have been elected by the American people to set policy. Unfortunately, the meeting deteriorated into a diatribe, as Leader Schumer has said, and a very offensive accusations being made by the President of the United States. I have served with 6 presidents. I have been in many, many, many meetings like this. Never have I seen a president treat so disrespectfully a co-equal branch of the government of the United States. I'll yield to the Speaker and to the leader for questions.
I just want to say this other thing, and that is, I think the president was very shaken up by the fact that 354. I have to make sure I had the number correct. And that means a big majority of the Republicans
there are 194
voted.
Republicans, 60 voted against a resolution which said the president's decision was wrong and dangerous and lacking in giving our allies confidence that we would stick with them in time of trouble.
And one point I want to make that I hadn't made a moment ago. So Leader McConnell said he thought the president's decision was wrong. He said it in strong terms. I beseech Leader McConnell to put the same resolution that passed the House on the floor of the Senate. It's a bipartisan resolution sponsored by Senator Menendez, a Democrat, and the senator from Indiana, Young, a Republican. And we urge Leader McConnell not just to condemn the president, but put this resolution on the floor. Because the safety of America, the safety of the Kurds are in the hands of one person, President Trump. And the best way to pressure him is a strong bipartisan resolution such as passed the House to undo the damage he has done.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
What we
Stanley.
witnessed on the part of the president was a meltdown. Sad to say.
Speaker Pelosi, did the impeachment inquiry
No, it didn't come up. It did not come up. Not at all. No, it did not come up. It did not come up.
When he called you a communist, can you just elaborate?
No, he didn't
on
call
that?
us. No, he did not call us a communist. He said, yes.
He said, let's just clarify that. He said the communists are taking
Some of ISIS were
communists, and you would be happy.
That might make you happy.
That might make you happy.
Listen.
No, and the speaker said,
Yes.
none of us. Yes, we walked out.
Yeah.
At that point?
Yeah.
No, at the point that he
later,
was.
later.
When he
Very-
started calling Speaker
When
Pelosi
he
a
was
third-rate
extraordinarily-
politician.
Which I said, I wish you were a politician, Mr. President, then you would know the art of the possible.
Did the Republicans stay behind? Did the Republicans stay?
Yeah,
Say?
some of the other members on both sides stayed behind. They wanted questions. I waited a moment
We had
because I
our
wanted to
questions.
ask him the question about intelligence reports on the Turks and Syrians guarding ISIS,
We
which I think is
also-
crucial.
We also expressed our concern that we have been asking for all-member, that be bipartisan, briefing to the House of Representatives on what is happening in Syria. It was scheduled for tomorrow, but they canceled it. And so that was part of our question, too. Why are you not briefing all of the members of Congress?
Thank you,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Madam Speaker, tomorrow you're hosting